Have you ever noticed how the smartest person in your class isn't always the one who gets the best grades? Or how the most naturally gifted athlete isn't always the one holding the trophy at the end of the season? There's something weird happening here. Something most people completely miss when it comes to managing money. Here at Simple Money, we've spent years watching people try to build wealth. And here's what blows my mind. The people who succeed aren't usually the ones with finance degrees, or genius-level IQs, or insider knowledge. They're the people who just keep showing up, day after day, month after month, year after year. Today, I'm going to show you why consistency beats talent in money management almost every single time. And more importantly, I'm going to reveal the psychological traps that keep talented people broke while average people build fortunes. Because here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. Your financial success has almost nothing to do with how smart you are. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening in the world of personal finance right now. Somewhere out there, there's a person with a finance degree. They understand derivatives and options and all sorts of complex investment strategies. They can calculate compound interest in their head. They read the Wall Street Journal every morning, and they're broke. Meanwhile, their neighbor works at the grocery store, never went to college, barely understands what a stock actually is, and they're building serious wealth. How is this possible? How does someone with zero financial education outperform someone who literally studied this stuff for years? Here's what's really happening. The finance graduate is constantly trying to optimize, trying to find the perfect moment, waiting for the right opportunity, tweaking their strategy based on the latest market news. They're so busy being smart that they forget to actually do anything. The grocery store worker? They set up automatic transfers 20 years ago. 10% of every paycheck goes straight into their retirement account. They never even see the money. It's not exciting. It's not clever. It's boring as hell, actually. But it works. Think about it this way. Imagine two people trying to fill a swimming pool with water. The first person has a fire hose. Incredible pressure. Massive volume. But they only turn it on once a month when they remember. The second person has a garden hose. Much smaller, much slower, but it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never stopping. Who fills the pool first? The garden hose wins, every single time. This is the fundamental principle that separates people who build wealth from people who just think about building wealth. And most people never figure this out because we're taught to worship talent and intelligence instead of systems and habits. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific patterns that explain why consistent action beats brilliant strategy almost every time. The first pattern I call the genius trap, and it's particularly cruel because it feels like you're doing everything right. Here's how it works. Smart people love to optimize. They want the perfect investment, the perfect timing, the perfect strategy. So they research, and they analyze, and they wait for the ideal moment. And while they're waiting, years pass by. Decades, even. Think about the person who spends 5 years researching the perfect investment strategy, reading books, watching videos, building complex spreadsheets. They finally have it all figured out, except they never actually invested a single dollar during those 5 years. And someone who just bought a simple index fund on day 1 with zero research, they've already made significant gains. Here's the psychology behind this. Our brains are wired to avoid regret. And the smartest people? They're especially good at imagining all the ways something could go wrong. So they overthink, they overanalyze, they optimize themselves right out of taking action. This isn't laziness. It's actually a form of perfectionism disguised as intelligence, and it's incredibly expensive. The people who win at money management understand something crucial. Progress beats perfection. Every single time. Now, this next one is what I call the hot streak illusion, and it destroys talented investors constantly. Here's what happens. Someone with real financial knowledge makes a few brilliant moves. They time the market perfectly. They pick the right stock. They make a lot of money very quickly, and their brain releases a massive dose of dopamine. It feels amazing. They feel like a genius. So naturally, they try to do it again. And again. And again. But here's the problem. Those wins weren't actually skill. They were luck. Random chance dressed up as brilliance. And eventually, the luck runs out. Let me give you a specific example. Jake has a natural talent for understanding business. He reads quarterly reports like novels. He can spot trends before most people. In his first year investing, he made 30% returns. He felt unstoppable. So, he started trading more frequently, taking bigger positions, getting more aggressive, because he believed he had a gift. 3 years later, he'd given back all his gains plus $20,000 of his original investment. Meanwhile, his sister Maria? She contributes $500 every single month to her retirement account. She doesn't even look at the balance most months. Her returns are average, maybe 8% per year, nothing spectacular. But over those same 3 years, her account grew steadily. No dramatic ups and downs, just consistent, boring growth. Here's why this happens. Consistency removes the emotional roller coaster. There's no high from winning, but there's also no crushing low from losing. Jake was on an emotional loop. Win big, feel amazing, take bigger risks, lose hard, feel terrible, try to win it all back. Maria was on autopilot. She never felt the highs, but she never felt the lows either. She just kept moving forward. The third pattern is what I call the optimization curse, and this one hits smart people especially hard. Here's how it plays out. You start with a simple plan. Maybe you're saving 10% of your income. It's working. You're making progress. But then you learn about tax loss harvesting, and Roth conversions, and backdoor IRAs, and you think, I could be doing this so much better. So you spend hours researching the perfect optimization strategy. You create a complex spreadsheet. You calculate everything down to the penny. And in the process, you stop doing the simple thing that was actually working. This is where talented people sabotage themselves. They upgrade from a plan that works to a plan that's theoretically better but practically impossible to maintain. Think about it like going to the gym. You could spend 3 hours researching the optimal workout split and the perfect protein timing and the ideal rest periods. Or you could just go to the gym today and lift some weights. The person who goes to the gym with a mediocre plan will always outperform the person with the perfect plan who never shows up. Here's what makes this even more insidious. Optimization feels like progress. You're learning, you're improving, you're getting smarter, but you're not actually doing the thing that matters. You're learning about doing the thing, which is completely different. The people who build wealth understand this distinction. They know that a good plan executed consistently beats a perfect plan executed occasionally. Now here's where things get really interesting. The fourth pattern I call the willpower trap. Talented people often rely on willpower and discipline to manage their money, and in the short term, this actually works pretty well. They can force themselves to save aggressively. They can resist temptation. They can stick to a strict budget through sheer determination. But willpower is a finite resource. It runs out. And when it runs out, everything falls apart. Let me tell you about Marcus. He's incredibly disciplined. Every January, he creates an aggressive savings plan. He cuts his spending dramatically. He tracks every single expense. For 3 months, he's perfect. He feels in complete control. But by April, he's exhausted. The constant vigilance is wearing him down. One bad day turns into one cheat week, and suddenly, he's completely off track. By December, he's back where he started, frustrated, confused, wondering why he can't just maintain the discipline he had in January. Here's the thing Marcus doesn't realize. He's fighting against his own human nature, and human nature always wins eventually. Compare this to someone who sets up automatic systems. They don't need willpower because the decision is already made. The money moves before they even see it. Their savings rate might be lower than Marcus's aggressive plan, but it runs all year, year after year, without fatigue, without burnout. This is the secret that mediocre planners understand, but brilliant planners often miss. Systems beat willpower. Automation beats discipline. Your future self is lazy and tired and forgetful. Plan accordingly. The fifth pattern is what I call the celebration trap, and this one sneaks up on people in the weirdest way. Here's what happens. Someone talented makes a smart financial move. They pay off a credit card. They hit a savings milestone. They make a great investment decision. And they celebrate. Which seems totally reasonable, right? Except here's how they celebrate. They spend money. They reward themselves with that purchase they've been delaying. They take that vacation they couldn't afford before. They essentially undo the progress they just made. Think about someone who works hard to pay off $8,000 in credit card debt. That's a huge achievement. They feel amazing. So they celebrate by taking a $3,000 vacation. Because they deserve it. And 6 months later, they have $5,000 in new credit card debt. They're confused about how they ended up back in the same pattern. Here's the psychology behind this. Our brains categorize wins and losses separately. Paying off the debt feels like a win. Spending on the vacation feels like a separate transaction. But financially, it's all connected. The celebration erased 37% of the progress. People who consistently build wealth celebrate differently. They celebrate by watching their net worth grow, by hitting new milestones, by measuring progress, not by spending. The reward is the result itself, not something purchased with the result. But here's what nobody wants to admit. And this might blow your mind for a second. The real reason consistency beats talent isn't actually about money at all. It's about identity. When you rely on talent, your identity is tied to being smart, being clever, making brilliant moves. And when those brilliant moves don't work out, your identity takes a hit. So you have to protect your ego. You make excuses. You blame external factors. You convince yourself the system is rigged. And most importantly, you stop trying, because trying and failing would mean you're not as talented as you thought. But when your identity is tied to consistency, failure is just data. A missed contribution is just a blip. A bad investment is just part of the process. Your identity isn't threatened, so you keep going. This is the uncomfortable truth about financial success. It's not about being smart enough. It's about being stubborn enough to keep showing up even when it feels pointless. Let me tell you about two people who illustrate this perfectly. First, there's Daniel. Daniel got a degree in economics. He's genuinely brilliant. He can explain monetary policy and analyze market trends and debate investment strategies with anyone. When he started his career, he was making good money. He knew he should invest. He knew all about compound interest and time in the market. But he wanted to do it right. So he spent months researching brokerages, comparing expense ratios, building the perfect portfolio allocation. He finally opened an account when he was 26, 3 years after he started researching. And then the market got volatile. He saw his account drop 15% in a month. He knew intellectually that this was normal. He'd studied market cycles. But emotionally, he panicked. He sold everything, waited for things to stabilize. He's now 34. His retirement account has about $45,000 in it. Which sounds okay until you realize he's been making 6 figures for almost a decade. He keeps meaning to get serious about investing. But there's always a reason to wait. The market's too high. There's an election coming. There might be a recession. His brilliant mind has become his biggest obstacle. Now, let me tell you about Lisa. Lisa works as a dental hygienist. She never studied finance. She doesn't really understand how the stock market works. When she got her first job at 22, her boss told her to sign up for the retirement plan. 10% of every paycheck automatically invested in something called a target date fund. Lisa had no idea what a target date fund was. She just clicked the buttons and forgot about it. She's now 34, same age as Daniel. Her retirement account has $160,000 in it. She makes less money than Daniel. She has zero financial expertise. She doesn't read investment books or watch finance videos. But she never stopped, never paused, never tried to time anything. The system just ran in the background of her life while she focused on other things. Here's what most people don't realize when they look at these two stories. It's not actually about intelligence or knowledge at all. It's about the relationship between action and outcome. Daniel needed to understand before he could act. And the more he understood, the more complex everything became. The more variables he had to consider, the more ways he could imagine things going wrong. His knowledge became a barrier instead of a tool. Lisa never had that problem. She didn't understand enough to be afraid. She didn't know enough to second guess. She just started and never stopped. And here's the crucial thing. After 12 years of automatic investing, Lisa has actually learned a lot about finance. Not from studying, but from experience. From watching her account through market ups and downs. From seeing compound growth in action. Her knowledge came from doing, not before doing. This is the pattern that separates people who build wealth from people who just think about building wealth. Successful people learn by doing. They start before they're ready. They figure it out along the way. And unsuccessful people try to learn everything first. They prepare endlessly. They wait until they feel confident. But confidence doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from action, from proving to yourself that you can handle uncertainty and keep going anyway. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Financial success isn't about making smart decisions. It's about making decisions and then making them consistently. The difference between Daniel and Lisa wasn't intelligence. It was momentum. Daniel kept stopping and starting, analyzing and reanalyzing. Every market movement was a reason to reconsider his entire strategy. Lisa just kept the machine running. The market went up, the machine kept running. The market went down, the machine kept running. Over time, the person with momentum will always overtake the person with intelligence. Because momentum compounds just like money does. Every consistent action makes the next consistent action easier. Every month you don't have to decide whether to invest makes it easier to not decide next month. Eventually, consistency becomes your default, your identity, the thing you do without thinking. And that's when real wealth starts to build. Not from brilliant moves, not from perfect timing, but from the accumulated effect of thousands of small, boring, consistent actions. Think about it like this. Every financial decision you make is a vote for the type of person you are. One decision doesn't change your identity, but 1,000 decisions? That shapes who you become. Daniel voted for himself as someone who waits for perfect conditions, someone who needs certainty before acting, someone who protects themselves from mistakes by avoiding action entirely. Lisa voted for herself as someone who just keeps going, someone who trusts the process, someone who doesn't need to understand everything to move forward. After 12 years of voting, they became completely different people, with completely different financial outcomes. And here's what makes this so powerful. You can change your vote anytime. Your past decisions don't lock you into a pattern. You can start voting differently today. The question isn't whether you have the talent or intelligence to build wealth. You probably do. Most people do. The question is whether you have the patience and persistence to keep doing boring things for a really long time, to automate the decisions, to remove willpower from the equation, to let systems run without constantly tweaking them. Because here's what I've discovered after watching hundreds of people try to build wealth. The ones who succeed aren't special. They're not smarter. They're not more talented. They're not luckier. They just figured out how to make consistency automatic, how to remove themselves from the decision-making process, how to set up systems that work even when they don't feel motivated. These 5 patterns: the genius trap, the hot streak illusion, the optimization curse, the willpower trap, the celebration trap. They're not character flaws. They're not signs of weakness. They're predictable patterns that happen to smart, talented, well-intentioned people. But once you see them, you can't unsee them. You start recognizing when you're optimizing instead of acting, when you're relying on willpower instead of systems, when you're celebrating in ways that undo your progress, and that awareness is the first step to doing something different. The people who build wealth don't have more discipline than you. They've just designed their lives so they need less discipline. They don't have more knowledge than you. They've just learned that action teaches faster than study. They're not better than you. They just stopped waiting to be ready and started before they felt prepared. So here's my question for you. What's one financial decision you could automate today? One thing you could set up so it happens whether you remember or not? Whether you feel motivated or not? Because that's where consistency starts. Not with a perfect plan, not with complete understanding, but with one small system that runs in the background while you focus on living your life.